3, 2, I believe we are live. All right, folks. Well, thanks so much for showing up. Welcome to, I think this is the third class by Alessandro Padovani. Tonight he's going to be talking to us about defensive carbine use. This is a follow-on to the previous couple videos. If you've not watched them, go out to the YouTube channel and have a look-see. A lot of the same concepts I think he's going to cover tonight. Again, my name is Ed Gardner, so I'm the Executive Director of the Liberal Gun Club. This is our social distance learning series. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let Alessandro just start talking because we got a lot of material to cover and we think we can get it done in about an hour-ish, depending on questions. So take it away, Al.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. So for the carabine, right? The carabine it's a very sexy tool. You know, it's a lot of fun to shoot, use, and become proficient with. The goal of the combat focused carabine class is to help the student become more efficient in the context of a plausible dynamic critical incident. Now, you know, we've seen some of these definitions before. I just reiterate them a little bit, you know, for anybody that might be new to this series of lessons. So becoming more efficient, we need to first differentiate between effectiveness and efficiency. Right? Effectiveness means achieving your goal. Efficiency means achieving your goal with the least amount of time, effort, or energy. If our goal is to be safe, if our goal is to stop the threat, it makes sense to endeavor to achieve it with the least amount of time, effort, and energy, because that will stop the threat sooner. And it will leave more time, effort, and energy to deal with any other threats in case they're there. So the goal is to make the student more efficient, and the context is that dynamic critical incident. A dynamic critical incident, we've seen that is an event that is surprising. You didn't know it was going to happen, right? Otherwise, you probably wouldn't go there, right? If you knew that there was an active shooter at the mall today, you probably wouldn't have gone to the mall, right? And it's important to understand it's surprising, we don't expect it, that surprising dangerous stimulus will jumpstart our body natural reaction. And we've seen how this body natural reaction are actually beneficial to our survival, right? We'll go over them rather quickly, but you know, there's a few things that happen at the same time. On the exterior that everybody can see, we lower our center of gravity. You know, the hands come up in a protective manner toward the line of stimulus, and we orient toward the threat. Lower the center of gravity, we bend the knees, we bend the hips. This prepares us to either fight or flight, right? The hands come up in a protective manner. That's just something that happens, right? When it is a dog, you know, the hands are going to be right here. Somebody with a gun over there is going to be there, right? But we need to understand that. You know, that's something that happens, and we need to integrate into our training.
You could step a little closer to the mic where you go back and forth.
We need to integrate into our training, right? So we lower center of gravity, the hands come up in a protective manner towards the line of sight, towards the line of stimulus, if you will, and we orient towards the threat, meaning that first is our attention, you know, maybe auditory, maybe visual, you know, something piques our interest, we start to focus on that, you know, and then if we have enough time, we're going to end up orienting towards the threat, meaning we're going to square off to the threat, hips and shoulders square to the threat, because again, hip and shoulder square to the threat, my knees are bent, my hips are forward, this is where I'm better prepared to either fight back or push and run away. So we'll see how we integrate all of this stuff into our training regimen. Now, it's important that we specify for the carabine class any plausible dynamic critical incident, right? Because once we handle a carabine, it's really easy to get into the fantasy style thing, you know, it's the fantasy camp. If you're not a SWAT team member, you know, maybe you shouldn't start practicing SWAT team tactics first, right? Maybe you should get a solid base of defensive use of a carabine, and then you can increment and amplify your learning and understanding, right? Plausible means that, you know, we don't usually go around with a carabine, you know, ready to use, right? We may go around with a handgun ready to use. That's why we have a CCW permit. So it's a lot more plausible that we may end up in a situation where we can engage with a handgun and not necessarily with a firearm. So the context for the defensive firearm is mostly on defense or property defense. You know, if you live in a rural area, if you have a lot of land, or you know, if you have a nice chunk of land, you know, the distances at which you may be called upon to use the carabine defensively may increase, right? That too, the plausibility is really kind of a strong point that help us to keep us on the legal side of things, right? Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, but I understand that if I'm in my property and I shoot at somebody that is 35 meters away at night, where I couldn't identify whether they were armed or not, now the legality of their shot may be very iffy, right? So we need to understand that. Just because you have a carabiner, it doesn't mean that that's going to be your first go-to, right? It might be the only tool you have. Maybe you're coming back from the range, you're stopping at the mall to eat, and then an active shooter event happens. Now it makes more sense to grab the carabiner instead of the handgun, right? If you decide to intervene. So the skills that we're going to look at, they're going to be serving you whether you are at home, whether you are out and about, whether you're at the range and something bad happens, right? Whether you're called upon to use that carabine to defend yourself or a loved one, or also if you're law enforcement, if you are at the high level, if you're a SWAT operator, if you're a special forces guy, the same simple principle will apply to your reality as well. Is that clear for everybody? Do we have any questions so far? So, safety rules, like first and foremost, even if it's dry, there's no ammo in here, and I'll show you the gun dry and so on, but finger somewhere other than the trigger until we're ready to shoot, right? On a handgun is normally on the seam between the slide and the frame, because that gives the tactile feedback. On the carabine, right, it's pretty easy because we're going to use, either the mag release button as a tactile thing, obviously not on top, but nearby. But anyway, it's not really effective to have it on the same level of the trigger, because again, grasp reflex, I'm holding something, I get startled, oh my God, I can still access the trigger. So I want it above the trigger, right, on somewhere that gives me a tactile feedback, right? Muzzle pointed in a generally safe direction until we are ready to engage, right? Especially with a long gun, right? We see how the ready position varies on context as well, right? If I'm by myself and I'm, coming home and I see somebody breaking into my house and so on, and I can move around my property with the muzzle generally pretty high as I'm looking for a threat, right? But now if I'm in a more, in an environment where there is more people and so on, this angle, right, that keeps the muzzle safe when I'm by myself. Now if I turn around, I may muzzle people's leg, people's feet, people's knees, people's hips, right? So I need to keep it down, right? So that muzzle pointing in a generally safe direction until I'm ready to shoot, it's a very important concept, not just a rule that we need to modify given the circumstances we're at, right? Third rule, the big picture rule, you're in charge of a tool that whether you use it negligently or maliciously can hurt or kill yourself, the person next to you, with all that entails from a legal, moral, ethical, and financial standpoint. Cool. Any questions so far? All right, so first let's have a
little T button on the bottom of the magazine. T button. What T button? Put the mag back in for a second so we can see what he's talking about. I know it fell on the floor. Sorry. Oh, I see what he's saying. The thing on the bottom of the, yeah, that thing.
That is just on this magazine, right? It's integral to it, and it's soft, so you can actually grab it and pull this or use it, to pull it out. So it's just a little handle, doesn't make too much of a difference unless we see later on. If you have your mags in a chest rig and it's really tight, you may need an extra help to pull them out. But we'll see about that in a second. So first, let's look at the rifle components, how you can improve it or modify it to your own specification, right? So there is like 100 different style of butt stocks. Find the one that again is more comfortable to you. If you can have an adjustable butt stock, right, that adjusts the length of pull, so it can be more comfortable for you to shoot and more intuitive to bring up and get a proper kick on it. We're gonna have a sling, right? Sling is important because again, if you're looking at home defense, right? Home defense with a carabine, like if I endeavor to protect my home with a carabine, every room that I'm in is probably 8 by 10. So it doesn't really make much sense to walk around with something as big as this, right? But maybe your house is bigger, your rooms are bigger, you know, whatever the situation is, maybe you're living one of those happy states where you can have a short barrel rifle and you decide to use that for your home defense, no problem at all, right? Remember though, like if something is full size, now I may need to lock the door. I may need to call 911. I may need to do something else. And this is a lot more unwieldy than a hanger, right? So if I put it on a sling, right, now it can help me to sustain the weight. I can put it down and do something, pick up a kid or whatever, and then get back to being ready. But remember, now if a kid has something else, this is still going to be pretty hard to shoot one hand, right? By the way, just so you know, this is empty, right? And there is what you call it device over here, so there's no rounds around, so we're all good. I've seen a few people ducking, you know, once they pointed the muzzle at. So then you can have the hanger, and again, that is very much up to you, whatever is comfortable for you and so on. I think that what we need on a carabine, whether we use it for home defense, whether we use it for sporting, whether we set it up for defense, it's a light, right? So you want a light on the carabine. You can have this or not, depending on how comfortable it is for you, right? This, a short forward grip is kind of comfortable for me. I get a nice grip, right? And incidentally, if you notice, this grip is very similar to my pistol grip, right? The more consistent I can be with my skill set, the least amount of resources I need to train, to devote to keep them fresh, right? This is my handgun grip. This is basically my carabine grip, right? The only thing that changes the tool and the offset of the hand. Then we're gonna have a red dot, right? Particularly nowadays, and particularly for defensive purpose, you know, a red dot allows me to keep my both eyes open, keep focusing on the threat with a much higher feedback of where my muzzle is, right? So with the carabine, I got 4 points of contact, right? Whenever I go to full extension. So I got 1 point of contact with the shoulder, 2 is the cheek well, 3 and 4, right? So this, when both eyes open, allows me to be focusing on the threat and still achieve combat accurate hit, right?
Al, when you're aiming down the barrel towards the camera, we can't hear you because you're talking into the rifle. Just
all right, cool. So we got 4 points of contact, right? That helps me to aim kinesthetically align the gun towards the threat. When the gun is up here, right? Going through the red dots allows me to keep both eyes open, stay focused on the threat, and have a higher degree of confidence in being able to achieve those hits, right? Obviously, the red dot doesn't have any magnification. So after a certain distance, you know, I may be better having a image multiplier. So you can have this one in the back. So this is a 3 per, so it's 3 power, right? Now, this is what we could do up until a couple of years ago. Now they actually sell scopes that go from 1 to 6 magnification, right? So you can use them as a red dot, but you can also throw them up in magnification if you need a more precise shot, right? Vortex does a really good one, a few good ones. Lucid Optics is something that I just checked out recently, and they do an amazing 1 times 6 times 24 rifle scope that works really well, and it's actually very affordable. All right, so sling, stock that fits you, pistol grip that fits you, right? Red dot, light, and then we can look at the muzzle brake. Muzzle brake is important because it helps you to manage recoil, right? It throws the gases, you know, so that they work together with the gun to keep the muzzle as low as possible. Again, the easier I can manage recoil, the quicker I can put rounds on top, right? And stop the threat.
Quick question about iron sights. Are they co-witnessed on the gun? Where are they? Are there iron sights on the gun?
The iron sight for me are not co-witnessed on the gun, right? I zero my iron sight first, then I zero the red dot, then I zero the red dot with the multiplier, right? And then I'm good to go, right? You could co-witness it with you could try to co-witness them with the red dot, but it doesn't work so well, right? Especially because we're going at farther distances and so on.
So there are no iron sights usable on that gun, given the way that the optics are set up. Is that correct?
If the, let me see.
Yeah, you'd have to take. Oh, so okay. Well,
Right.
there you go.
So
That answers the question.
right, I can still see through. I can aim through the red dot, right? It's just not co-witnessed. So whatever happens, the red dot fails, no problem. I flip up the iron sights, and now I'm good to go with my iron sights. Does that make sense? It's just co-witnesses. Zeroing the iron sight with the zero of the red dot, it is really, really difficult. Right?
And another question real quick before you move on from accessories around lights. So in the pistol class, we talked about not putting a light on the gun because you were pointing the gun at things you were illuminating. How does that differ here?
Well, I don't have an option. That's the only difference, right? I cannot really go around the house doing this, right? I mean, I could, but then I would probably want a much shorter and lighter gun than this, right?
So it's a matter of training for figuring out the trigger presses, etc., while you're illuminating targets.
Come again?
It's a matter of training while figuring out when to press the trigger while illuminating targets with a rifle.
Yeah, basically, like with these lights here, right? With the light on the gun, again, everybody's thinking about high speed, low drag, SWAT teams and everything else, right? If you're in your home, we know that home defense, the priority should be evade. If you can evade, you barricade, arm yourself, call 911, set yourself 90 degrees to the entrance, right?
Yeah.
So
another question. Go ahead.
I don't need really to even have a light, because I'm not going to look for the bad guy. Now I'm outside of my house. I'm getting home and I see somebody breaking in, and I see a weapon, so I grab my rifle from the truck. I just came from the range. Now I may need the light, right? So I need to identify with the light before I press the trigger, right? I need to identify who it is. I need to identify whether they're armed or not, right? So that's why the light is very important. Not only that, with the handgun, shooting one-handed with the light over here doesn't give you much more stability or much accuracy than shooting one-handed with the light here or the light in front, right? It really, because you cannot acquire a good grip, so it's not really an advantage. With the long gun, having the 4 points of contact instead of just 3 makes a huge difference, right? Especially on multiple shots on target, especially if the person presents a more difficult shot to pick.
So I think some of the question was around unintended discharges, which I'm not sure is a phrase that I'd use. And then one other question. So take that into consideration for a moment. And the other question is, there's no lasers. You've got red dots. What's your general difference?
So the red dot is basically, the red dot is here, right? And you see through it and you zero it, right? The laser actually would be, say, on the other side of your flashlight, right? You would have a laser, and that works just like a laser on a handgun. So the laser helps you to see where you're aiming at on the target, right? So I have no problem with a laser, right? I actually enjoy a laser. I think lasers are very beneficial, especially if you're shooting an orthodox position. You may not be behind the gun. You may be around the corner or under something. You can activate the laser and see where you would hit, right? But the problem is, I still need to identify my target before I put the laser on it, right? The laser doesn't illuminate the target. Doesn't tell me whether the target is armed or not. The flashlight will tell me whether the target is armed, is not armed, what kind of weapon they have. Are they moving towards me? Are they backing up and all that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that answers actually all 3 of the questions. So yeah.
Cool.
All yours.
All right. So once you figure out, your best setup and so on and so forth, how much money you want to invest and everything else, now we can talk about, stance, shooting stance, and all that stuff, right? So our shooting stance for the carabine is the same as for the handgun, right? We know that when startled, when facing a danger, we lower our center of gravity, right? So going on center of gravity, bending at the knees, bending forward at the hips, right? Now instead of going both hands, both arms standing with the pistol, I just go with the right, right? So right here, you see that, I am behind the gun with my mask. I'm locking in as much as possible, push-pulling, right? And I'm leaning into that gun. So this allows me to manage recoil as best as I can. On the feet, unfortunately, we can't really move down and so on, but the feet can be staggered a little bit, right? You don't need to be perfect with your feet, right? It's a natural stance, however you see yourself. If you have a larger caliber carabine, like a AK or like a 308, you may want to actually get behind the gun a little bit more dynamically, right? You may have stagger your feet a little bit more. But even if I stagger my feet a lot, I want my hips and shoulder to be even behind the gun, right? So even now, here my feet are parallel to each other. I'm leaning into the gun, right? And I know that if I shoot 5 rounds, it is good. If I shoot 10, I may start to go a little bit back, right? So I may be putting a foot a little bit forward. But as you can see, my hips and my shoulder are still square. I'm not shooting like this, right? I'm not blading off. Because again, by blading, I can manage recoil more poorly. Therefore, it's going to slow my rate of fire. Does that make sense?
Go.
So normally, let's say you just got your rifle, right? You're either coming to class or you're going to the range to zero it, right? There is different theory about where you zero it, 50 yards, 100 yards, 200 yards, whatever, right? We've seen that if you zero your rifle at 100 yards, right, you are always offsetting. Let me see. Let me walk that back a second. Like normally I would zero my rifle at 50 yards because I think that that's a possible distance, right? For defensive use of the carabine. And what happened is I'm right on the spot at 50 yards. Anything shorter than 50, I need to put my red dot a little bit above. Anything past 50, like say 100, I need to put it a little below, right? So I have those two variables. If I zero it at 100, up to 100, I just need to put it above. So I don't have that, do I need to go above? Do I need to go below, right? And so for intended purposes, I usually zero at 100, right? You may have different theories and, we won't really discuss them here, but that's just to give you an idea, right? If you don't have 100 yards, you can zero at 50, but understand that there is a limit after 50, you need to switch your old over or old hand. Anyhow, so we get the shooting stance down, right? Now, our ready position is kind of like the high compressed ready for the pistol, right? But we have the carabine, so the muzzle cannot be up here, so we call it the low compressed ready, right? So from the side, it's just here, right? I still have the carabine index on my shoulder, right? So when I raise the gun, the first drill is going to be raise, touch, press. So I raise the gun, right? It becomes a consistent point for me here, right? So from here, I raise the gun, I get a good cheek well. If I look through the red dot, and if I were to use my sights, right? My sights are there as well. So I need to develop that consistency in my position so that every time the gun comes up, I got my cheek weld and I can see through the sights if I need to, but I can see through the red dot if I need to, right? As we mentioned, we got the 4 point of contact, right? So shoulder, cheek, strong hand, support hand. See, the goal again is when I go up, is for this shoulder to be squared off to the other, right? Again, this allows me to manage recoil better, right? If I were like this, do you see where energy bleeds? This way, I can control the gun less. So first, I want to see how my kinesthetic alignment is developing, right? So I'm gonna switch up the red dot, if I have a red dot, and I'm gonna take my iron sight down if I have iron sight, right? What I wanna do is just like with the handgun, right? We are gonna go to full extension, both eyes open, focusing on the threat. The gun comes in and parallel with my line of sight, where I'm focusing, giving a good trigger press. That's where I'm gonna get my hits, right? Same thing with the carabine, right? I want to look through, right, and focus on the thread. Touch, press, take a shot, see where the shot goes, right? If the shot is going where I'm focused on, which normally would be the high center chest on the target, now I know that my kinesthetic alignment is good. Obviously, it can vary in there, right? Because again, we're not using sight, we're not trying to be as accurate as possible. We're trying to be as accurate as we need, right? So defensive distances, 4 point of contact is actually pretty easy to get that consistent kinesthetic alignment. Because when I bring the gun up with the 4 point of contact, the gun is kind of automatically in and parallel with my line of sight.
Yeah, you're losing your audio when you speak into the gun. And I got a bunch of questions, so.
All right, fire away.
Let's start from the top.
Mhm.
9mm carbines, 50 or 100 yards.
It really depends also on what kind of cartridge you use and so on, many grains and stuff. I would probably go for 100 yards because what I like about the 100 yard zero is that I only have to think about all over, right? So it would work for the 9mm as well, I believe.
All right. It's the opposite of what I said in the chat. So,
Hey, and frankly,
yeah,
I don't have that much experience with 9mm carabines, right? So you may be right. We may find out more information and put it on the.
yeah, we can have a spirited discussion about that after the fact around ballistics.
Yeah.
Can you shoot from the weak shoulder with that sling?
Yes, sir. So when we talk about swing, we have single point swing. So they attach the gun with in a single point only. So this way, right, we're going to look at transition. But basically, transition is going to be, I'm going to dip the gun, right, cross, switch, and now ready to go, right? Dip the gun, cross, switch, and I'm ready to go. If I had a 2 point sling, right? The advantage of the 2 point sling is I can cinch it up really close. If I'm moving around, the gun stays closer to me, right? Or if I don't, hands off, the gun is not going really much anywhere, right? Because at 2 points, it stays closer. The problem with this is on, just like it was asked, on the transition, right? If I'm here and I cross, I end up choking myself, right? I may have doubles slings that are long enough, but normally when I have a 2 point, it's going to be get this arm out, dip, cross, switch, dip, cross, switch, right? So the important step here is with a 2 point sling is to get this arm out so that I don't end up choking myself.
All right. For proper alignment, how far up, down do you place your elbows? I'm not sure if that's are you pinning your elbows to your chest question, or is it some other biomechanical question? So why don't you go ahead and address elbow positioning in general, if you do not mind.
So not at all. That's actually a good question that comes up, right? Because unfortunately, until we go on the range and practice and so on, we get a lot of our info from the YouTube, right? So
like this, because
this, right? This is comfortable to me, right? Because of the length of my arm, the length of my carabine and so on. This would be a little bit too tight. The super C clamp out there would just be silly, right? So this is a good halfway for me. Now, if I go behind cover, I may bring it in, right? If I'm going for an extreme long distance shot, I may straighten it out a little bit, right? So the support arm elbow position is very much variable, right? The C clamp that became old fashioned after the MacBook videos, right? It works well. It comes from competition when you're swinging from target to target. You can drive that gun further, like faster kind of thing, right? And you manage to recoil a little bit better because your arm is stiff as well. But it's really in position to hold for a long period of time, right? So not only that, we know that when we do multiple thread engagement, right, we're not just simply going bing, 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 like in competition. But again, I start to shoot the first bad guy, the other 2 or 3 bad guys are not necessarily going to be exactly where they were, right? I need to finish my first thread, assess the environment, find the next threat, engage it, right? Assess the environment, find the next threat, engage it, right? It's not as simple as like a, a playground. So because of that reason, and amongst other, that's why we don't have like the best angle for your elbow and so on. Is what works best for you given the circumstances, understanding that there is some pros and cons with everything.
Yeah, so I want to add one thing because I'm personally curious. So when I've done the trainings that you're talking about with the types of folks that you're talking about in general, the advice was always elbows pinned as close to your body as you can make them, and your support hand as close to the mag well as you can without interfering with the operation of the magazine.
But did I ever tell you why?
It was a stability thing, right? So it's the reasoning that I was told at the time, and I don't want to get into this particular educational opportunity, was that's closer to your pistol. That's closer to your pistol high compressed ready form.
Are we talking about shooting position or ready position?
Shooting position and ready position. So I was always
So
pull it all up in.
I understand what you're saying, and I heard it before, but it just doesn't make sense, right? Because I mean, we all know this gun, right? When we shoot, the gun wants to do this, correct? So here we put the fulcrum back, it's going to jump more. Here I'm putting the fulcrum forward, right? So I can control it better. Not only that, but here I can engage my muscular structure, shoulder, bicep, and so on, to squeeze the gun down a little bit better than if it was here. Here I'm just, I let the gun do what it wants. Here I'm controlling it more. Does that make sense?
I knew you'd have an answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We try to think deep about these things. I don't know what that tells us about us, but that's what it is. So, any other questions?
I'm scanning through. I think you can go ahead and go on.
All right. So, I'm going to the range, or I'm dry firing at home, obviously making sure that there's no ammo around, the gun is empty, the magazines are empty. Now, to develop my good shooting stance, my good kinesthetic alignment, again, I'm here in the ready position, right? This is what doesn't change, right? When the gun comes up, that's the pocket, right? And again, the pocket is on your pec. It's not on your shoulder, right? It's on your pec. Because like when you put it here, elbow, you put it down, now you're engaging your mind to recoil and manage it, right? So you don't want it on your.
Say that again because your audio completely cut out. Sorry.
Come again?
Your audio completely cut out. Can you say all that again about where?
Sure thing. So from here, I want a consistent point of contact on the shoulder, and that I want the stop in what we call the pocket. The pocket is on the pec. It's not on your shoulder bone. It's not on your clavicle, and it's not on your sternum, right? It's on the pec because once I shoulder it and I bring down this elbow, right? Now I'm engaging the pectoral muscle, which gives me a more stable shooting platform and allows me to absorb recoil a little bit better, which allows me to manage recoil better, right? So to develop my kinesthetic alignment, I'm here, I'm in the ready position, I'm relaxed, right? And then raise, right? As I'm raising the muzzle up, I'm also lowering my center of gravity and leaning into the gun, right? Raising the muzzle up, touch the trigger, press the trigger. Come back down, and that's how I can learn to develop that kinesthetic alignment, right? Now, in the ready position, safety on. When I recognize the threat and I raise the gun, that's when the safety comes off, right? So from here, safety on, there, safety off. When I finish to engage and I come back down, right? Meaning there's no more threat that I identified yet, I put the safety back on. I do my assessment with the safety back on, right? If you want to have safety on before we figure out who we need to shoot the first time, we will want the safety on before we figure out who to shoot next as well, right? So when we come up, safety off. When we come down, safety on. Once I develop my proper kinesthetic alignment and shooting position, right? without relying on the sides. Now I can either put my iron sight on if I have those, or I can turn my red dot on if I have that, and see if I have to modify anything, right? So I turn my red dot on. And now, when I go to check my kinesthetic alignment, my shooting stance, I'm here. All right, I can see I have both eyes open. I have both eyes open. I need a microphone over here. I have both eyes open, and without moving my cheek well, I see the red dot in, so that's good for me, right? So I found the perfect shooting stance for myself. And here, line of sight goes right through the red dot or through my iron sight device those. So now I've developed a good shooting stance, a good kinesthetic alignment, and if I need to be more precise, I just need to focus more on my sights rather than the thread, right? Now we need to understand, and obviously that's going to be easier to understand on the range with live fire, that if I have a red dot, I'm going to have a little bit of a different offset to the muzzle than if it was just iron sight, you know, or if I had like a scope, different mount, you know, however you mount your red dot on your scope, you know, a different measurement. So it gives you more of an offset between your red dot or your sights and where the muzzle is. And this really comes into play when the targets are close and personal, or if I'm shooting behind cover, or if the target is behind cover, or if the target has a hostage, right? Because here, right, let's say that I'm shooting behind a vertical cover, right? If I can show it here, right, my red dot is looking above, you know, my cover, but my muzzle, you can't see my muzzle, so my muzzle is still behind cover. So I may see the thread there and I shoot, and now all my rounds impacts the cover instead of the back guy. So we need to understand that mechanical offset, right, and take it into consideration. Any questions so far? All right, so
you gotta give me a second to unmute my mic because I'm trying to give you. No, there's no questions. Go on.
all right. So now let's put what we've seen in the first drill that you can try for yourself at the range, right? It's raise, touch, press, just like we do with the handgun, you know. So raise, defeat the safety, get into your shooting stance, right? Touch, press. And you're gonna do it both eyes open, focus on the high center chest on the target, right? And you can use your red dot and so on. See where that rounds impact, right? You do it a few times, so you develop that consistency. Then you do it with multiple shots on the out command. But for you, it's gonna be the same, right? On the out command that you give yourself, you're gonna perform the same step. You're gonna raise, you're gonna touch, press, and now you can do multiple shots. And you see when you start to shoot multiple shots, you see how you may have to modify your shooting stance, you know, your grip or anything else to be better able to control that recoil, right? After that, we can integrate lateral movement. We talked about it before. Lateral movement is one of those defensive efficient actions that we can do to significantly affect the target ability to present a little threat, right? So here, I'm in the ready position, right? When I recognize the need to engage, I move laterally until I'm ready to engage. So as I move, right, I'm gonna bring the gun up, defeat the safety, be ready to engage. Come back down. And again, multiple shot on target, fix my stance, my grip, my 4-point of contact, so that allows me to manage recoil better. Now we're gonna add assessment, which is another the defensive efficient action, right? When we are assessing, we need to remember a couple of important things. Assessment is both cognitive and physical, right? This, right? Looks really good on the YouTubes, but it doesn't really give you enough time for your brain to process the information, right? It looks good, but you're not picking up anything from the environment. Therefore, you're not assessing anything, right? You're not making yourself safer. So I engage my thread, come back, I'm gonna assess, I'm gonna look, and I'm gonna try to pick up something around me that I can actually articulate in my brain so that I train my brain to look and process information, just to look and, you know, think about something else. When we assess, again, we assess for the threat, the people we still need to shoot, people we don't want to get shot by, right? And law enforcement, CCW, security people, right? I'm looking for people that may need help, wounded people, like loved ones that need help and so on. I'm going to look over myself as well, because under a high adrenaline state, I may not even realize that I've been shot, right? So I'm going to look around, you know, I'm going to look over myself. I might look over my gun as well. Am I out of ammo? You know, is there a malfunction, whatever? I'm ready to go if I need to. And then I'm going to look for a position of advantage, right? Remember, you don't have to stand stock still until you look at everything else, right? Because if the threat is there, there's a position of advantage there, I can assess as I'm moving, you know, keeping the muzzle in a low ready position, right? And as I'm moving to a position of advantage, I can assess if there is more threat, if I'm wounded, if I'm not wounded, if I need to help somebody else. Does that make sense? Cool. So that's your drill. On the act command, you're going to come up, engage, multiple rounds, I center chest, bring it down, assess. When I'm assessing the safety zone, right? And then if I recognize another threat, again, I move laterally, bring the gun up, safety up, engage, come back down, and assess. All right. Any questions so far?
No, we're all set.
Cool. Now, let's revisit that transition to the weak side. Like, we may need to transition because we need to go and use cover from our weak side, right? Now, again, taking cover and so on is better explained on the range where we can actually move around and see angles and so on. So we're not going to look too much into that. There's a lot of variables, right? But ideally, the principle is you want to show the least amount of yourself and still be able to see the bad guy, right? So obviously, let's say there is a partition right here, right? From my strong side, right, I can be, let me see if I can make it, you know, I could be, nah, never mind. We need something here. But basically, I can lean, right? And the wall might be here, and that's all you need to see of me for me to be able to see you, right? If I go on the opposite side, obviously this shoulder, this side of my head is going to be exposed before the side gets in line with the threat, right? So that's why I switch side, so that even on this side, I can expose the least amount of my body as possible, right? And again, there is many different ways to do this. We found that, again, consistency is key, right? From here, right, dip. I can show you again. Dip, so I can clear the gun. I don't chin check myself with the gun, right? So I'm gonna dip, cross to the other shoulder, and then command hand goes forward, support hand comes back. We do it like this because if I move this hand back on the command grip, right, I'm just locking my other hand here. I cannot like hook and do this. That's not really good, right? So that's why from here, safety on, dip, cross, forward and backward. And then I'm ready to engage. Dip, cross, forward, backward, right? So that's what makes the most sense for us. Try it out. If you have a way that works best for you, as long as it's not more complicated, we can look at that. Yeah, the only other thing that we saw, if I have a 2-point sling, I need to take this arm out, right? And we saw it before. Now, let's talk a little bit about transitioning to the handgun, right? So, right, there's the safety thingamajig. So no rounds can go in there, no rounds in the magazine. So here we go.
You still haven't given it a name other than Thingamajig?
I think I sent the link to John, is going to put it on the store. I don't remember the name, man. I'll check it out. So let's talk about a couple of things, right? Why would we transition to the handgun, right? Basically, if I run out of ammo or if I have a malfunction, right? Now, it's not an arbitrary transition. If I have rounds in my gun, like this gun is working, this is a more effective stopper than the pistol, so I'm gonna stick with this, right? Ideally, I need to consider a couple more things. If the bad guy is at 30 yards and I run out of ammo, right? I don't know how accurate I am at 30 yards with my pistol. So I may decide as I'm moving laterally to switch magazine and get the long gun ready to take that longer distance shot, right? Now, by the same token, or actually the other side of the token is that I run out of ammo here when the bad guy is at 5 yards, then it's going to be more beneficial for me to drop the rifle, grab my pistol, and engage at 5 yards with my pistol, because it's going to take me less to do this than to reload my rifle. So let's say the threat is close enough that it makes sense to switch to my gun. Or if I have a double feed, right? If I double feed with a carabine, it's going to take me like between an hour and a week to resolve it. So it makes a lot more sense to go for my pistol, right? But again, gun is empty. That doesn't go bang, right? I'm in the middle of my string of fire or whatever, doesn't go bang. Safety on. I use the support hand to guide it to the side as I go to get my gun, and then I can either go with strong arm only, or I can take the time to get a two-handed grip. That depends, you know, how quick I am, how effective I am, and so on, right? But basically, so I'm here, boom, 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 drop it, and now you can engage with your pistol. Then obviously, let's say I engage with my pistol, blah, blah, blah. You know, I want to assess, make sure there's no more threat. I put my pistol back. I fix whatever is wrong with my rifle, right? And now I'm good to go again. Any question on that?
No, there's a spirited discussion on what to call that thing in your pistol. So,
All right.
would you like some of the suggestions?
No, no, I don't think it would elevate the
The YouTube channel is a family channel, so we can't do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Question on so if you're deployed with a rifle and you have your pistol, is like you have it concealed in appendix, right?
Yes.
So the circumstances under which all of this would come to pass are what?
Are very non-plausible, right? The idea that particularly where I live, you know, the state I live in, that I will use this as opposed to my CCW, the probability of it is extremely small. Let's say I'm at the range, we're training, and now somebody goes crazy, goes stupid at the range. Now, when I'm teaching carabine, you know, or I practice carabine, I have my carabine because I'm zeroing, I'm working with it, I'm putting something new in it, and I'm testing it. And now something goes down. Obviously, I'm not going to go to my pistol, right? I'm going to use my rifle. Let's say you know, I'm driving back from the range, right? After teaching class, I stop at the mall, and now an active shooter happens, and obviously, do I decide to intervene? Do I decide not to intervene? That's up to everybody, right? But if I were to decide to intervene, I would definitely use this, right? I'm going to stay with my friends in Colorado on their land, you know, and I have this. Something happens, I may grab this on top of this, right? So the plausibility is very small. Incidentally, also because, you know, the probability of me being able to use a rifle are very small. The probability of me running out of 30 rounds of ammo in my rifle are really small, right? But because a lot of people have both a rifle and a gun, And especially because if you're training, you're coming to class, the first part of the day is just going to be carabine, right? Because we focus on that, and because again, at 5 yards, instead of reloading, if I had a gun, I would go for the gun, right? The second part of the day, we don't handguns as well, and so you can practice both, right? It's a little bit like the reload. It's not necessarily the most plausible of skills to train, but if we have it and we want to practice and want to be proficient with both, there's no downfall to it. Does that make more sense?
Oh, absolutely. I just wanted to make sure you were consistent in addressing the plausibility versus probability equation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's why that the main goal of the combat focused carabine, defensive focused carabine, is that, like, everybody has a carabine that has a carabine. Let's see how we can become proficient with that in a defensive manner. So, and again, we are really on the edge of the plausibility principle. But again, there might be people that choose to have a 9mm small barrel, short barrel rifle as the home defense gun. They can hold it up with one hand if they need to, right? That I have friends in Reno, from Reno Guns on Range. Everybody, all the instructors there, the gun defenses and short barrel rifle, 9mm silence, and so on. You're like, dude, yeah, make me hate you, but that could make sense, right? And so we practice with that as well.
All right. So that was actually exactly what somebody in the chat just said was, the PCC's set up for home defense is the use case. And then, all right, I think we're good. You got 3 minutes till the end of the hour. What else you want to cover?
So I'm going to just talk about positional shooting, right? Obviously, we may be standing up, we may be taking cover behind a vehicle, behind a wall, or whatever, right? Or we may also decide to, we need a higher degree of precision, so we need a higher degree of support, basically, right? So let me move the camera, see how it's gonna work for everybody. I hope nobody is, all right.
I'll tell you if we're motion sick. That's gonna need to come up a bit. There you go.
All right, so let's say, right, I'm standing up, right, and I'm taking my shot, and I realize that I need to be a little bit more stable, right? So I may decide to go down on one knee, right? So if I go down on one knee.
It's good framing, by the way, so you're good.
All right. So here, it makes sense to go down on the knee and support my forward arm on it, right? I could be going down with this knee, right? And that still works, but you see where most of the weight is, right? Up front. So if I'm here, right, now I can be more stable. All this forward weight is actually supported by the knee. On the knee, the principle is flesh on bone. So I can either put my tricep on my kneecap, right? Or I can put my elbow on my quad, right? We don't want bone on bone because bone on bone is obviously less stable, right? So you can be here or you can be there, right? And this gives me another point of contact. So now I have 5 points of contact, if you will. So it maintains the carabine a bit more stable, right? Let's say that I'm here, I'm flexible and so on and forth. And then I'm going to go down on one knee, I'm going to squat down. So I'm squatting, and then I'm going to put bone on muscle, bone on muscle. So here, it gives me 6 points of contact to maintain the rifle a little bit more stable, right? And then I can decide to go, pardon me, let me see. I can decide to go all the way down to sitting, right? Sitting, again, here I may put the knee, the bone of the knee on my tricep, and here I can put my elbow on the muscle over here, right? So these two gives me a much more stable platform to take my more precision shots, if or when necessary. It also helps if I have a low cover, instead of standing up straight and not have my ass, covered by the protection there, I want to squat down so that I expose the least amount of myself as possible. Pardon me.
You, you got a good smile.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my dentist has a new car. All right, so we're not really going into the prone shooting and so on, because there's a lot more about extreme precision, right? Because if you're going flat, you're losing a lot of mobility, you're not using a lot of peripheral vision, you know, so it's not necessarily something that is very plausible, right? Does more for like long distance precision shooting. So let me see. That's pretty much all I got for today. So we can, unless there is question, I can talk a little bit about a battle belt versus a plate carrier, something like that for the.
No, let's see what kind of questions we got. Looks like somebody messaged me. All right, folks. So it's good time for questions. If anybody's got some, I see a lot of spirited discussion about various pistol caliber carbines in the chat. When sitting, are you squared up? That was a question. When sitting, when you're sitting in that seated position, are you squared up against target?
Squared up. Like it depends on everybody's mobility, hip flexors, and so on. I'm actually a little bit offset, right? This elbow is a little bit forward, so this knee is a little bit forward, and vice versa with the other, right? So I'm not necessarily here and stretching this out, you know. And again, you gotta try so you find the one that is most comfortable for you, the one that you can achieve more easily, also the one you can get out of more easily in case you need to book it, right? And then the angles and so on, you modify it upon, you know, your flexibility body type.
Other questions seem to be, they want to hear you wax eloquent about other gear around the home defense mechanism, ear protection, vests,
all right, so,
yada yada.
Yeah.
So wax eloquent.
It goes without saying that, you know, if a 9mm gun makes a big loud noise, you know, a rifle makes a bigger noise. So if you're in a state where you can get a suppressor, you know, it does behoove you to do so. If you decide to keep a gun for home defense, a long gun for home defense, or a short barrel rifle for home defense, you know. There is an advantage under stress. We have auditory exclusion. So your brain shuts down, the input doesn't want to steal, right? And so you don't necessarily hear it at the moment, right? It may not be the same for your daughter, your wife, your son, anybody else that is there with you, right? If you could go suppressed, I don't see any negative points to that. It also helps with diminishing the risk of overpenetration from the rounds and so on, right? Now, setup, right? If you decide to have a rifle or your home defense thing, you may want to have a little battle belt set up next to your rifle, right? So that you can, right on me. So you can have all your setup that you need, right? So you can have you can have your pistol here. You can have your like first aid kit. You can have magazine. You can have lights. You can have whatever, right? Obviously, if it's home defense, you don't need something this elaborate. You know, you just need a belt that is easy to put on, right? Where you may have an extra flashlight in case you need. You may have your cell phone, your extra cell phone, and you may have a couple of spare magazines, right? Again, so that's kind of like a quick and easy setup that can be there. Put it on, right? You can be sleeping, you know, au naturel and still be able to put this on and move around the house, looking for your kids or your wife or whatever, right? If they're in a different room and you decide to go barricade in that room. Now, something to consider, you know, it's the plate carrier, right? And again, plate carriers, they come in all flavor, color, and you know, different styles. This is kind of a minimalist, you know, plate carrier. You know, it's got steel plates, so it's very slim, but it weighs a bit more than polyethylene plates or just ceramic plates, right? But obviously it comes in at a much lower price point, so I was able to afford it. Now, the problem with steel plates, most steel plates are not tested independently. So you see the test on YouTube and so on and so forth. You could get a lemon and you don't know about it, right? So that's kind of the limited factor for them. So if you can afford it, get either ceramic or composite plates. If that's a little bit too steep, these are better than none for sure, right? So on your plate carrier, you can choose to put a couple of magazines there. Plate carriers can be like extra pockets for medical gear as well as other magazines and so on. But again, if you're looking at home defense, the lighter it is, the quicker it's going to be to put on, put off, and actually to remember to put on and off, right? You don't want to have like a setup like a SWAT team medic that weighs it down 40 pounds and it's going to take you 5 minutes to don, right? So remember, if something happens, it happens fast. You should have your gear set up properly so you can respond efficiently. Now, just a couple of extra things. If you go to take a class, right? Particularly one of our classes with the cadre and so on, there's going to be a lot of moving around, kneeling, sitting up and down. So knee pads are awesome, right? So that you maintain your knees. Gloves are pretty good because for one thing, you look very cool in them. And secondarily, right, we shoot around 500-600 rounds, per day with the carabine, and this gets super hot, right? So you may wear the glove. Usually I wear the glove just in my support hand because I don't like feeling like my hand is turning into bacon, right? So those are things that are valuable both in training. Not necessarily for a defense situation, like you don't really need, the time the necessity to don glove because you're not going to shoot 100 rounds, right? So there is some more things that you could get that make sense, right? This is kind of a chest pocket. You can have a sling and carry and so on. So I can have this one laying next to my carabine, right? Anyway, with another sling on, and on this one, once you open it, you can have some spare magazine on this side, and you can have your medical gear here, right? So you got a pretty good setup both for spare magazine and spare medical kit, right? As always, ankle medical kit that you can find at the LGC store. You have a trauma kit with you all the time, at all times. And it will be probably higher to use your rifle for self-defense. All right. Any questions?
I think the only question that, other than some, questions about au naturel and a belt, attaching slings to non-standard rifles like the Mini 14 was something I thought was an interesting question.
Yeah, that it depends on how much you love your rifle and how much jerry rigging you can do.
Yeah,
right?
so drills.
Drills, if you don't want to go with drills, right, you could have a choke point on that rifle and use paracord, right? You can make a couple of loops here of paracord, right? And then you can attach it to the paracord. And again, that paracord is pretty solid. It's going to withstand the weight of the Mini 14 on you, right? On the front end, that's where you may end up having to go in with a little, drilling a little screw, right? So that you can do that way. Or you can put, a pretty thick zip tie, right? With a smaller zip tie dangling so you can attach the zip tie, right? It really depends on you and how much you want to modify that beautiful gun.
I have a couple of questions, Alessandro. For the sling, do you have quick disconnect swivels on that?
Yeah. So basically, this is the Frog Pro sling, right? And so let's say you got the single, right? So on the rifle, I got this one, right? So now let's say I need to take the rifle down because I'm training or what have you, whatever I need to do, I just release it here and the rifle goes. Or I could release it here and everything goes off to the side. Did that answer that question?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. And again, in case you guys are interested, if you go to frogpro.it, that's the website with all the Frog Pro gear. Is a friend of mine. We developed a product together, but like his quality is bar none, is at the same level as Cry Precision, First Spear, and so on and so forth. And it's Italian, so it's a little bit more fashionable.
All right, so you need to say the name of the Italian handgun manufacturer for us.
I'll say it in a second. One little thing that I want to talk about before we move on, because that's a question that comes up on the range. It didn't come up today, but that's understandable. So if I'm right-handed, right, and therefore I have my gun on this side, either appendix or on this side, I want to put the sling on my right shoulder, right? Because here, when I drop the carabine, it goes to my left side, leaving me space to get to my gun, right? If I was carrying it this way, right? Now I'm shooting, I'm dropping it, it's gonna be over here, impeding my draw or my draw from here. So the sling goes on your strong shoulder. That make sense?
Yes, it does.
Cool, thank you very much. All right, any questions?
No, I think we are at 12 minutes past the hour. We've lost about 20 of the people that were in the class. So I think you've got a captive audience if you'd like some applause.
Okay.
Yeah, I have one thing. Alessandro, can you talk your friend into giving us a break on shipping costs?
Yes.
Shipping from Italy is a crazy thing.
So if you guys look at what you want and you tell me, I can get it in the order when my next shipment of responder comes, I can have it put in there so that then the shipping is split among like 100 items instead of just for you.
Yeah, and we can also do something with John on the store as well. So
Yeah.
there's a couple of approaches to not getting killed by shipping, at least not killed when you guys order it.
Yeah. Now,
Senator, this is awesome. So
one quick thing.
Oh, yeah?
As I think about it, I don't know how many of you guys are AK people, right? But with an AK, provided that you didn't do much to the trigger, you could actually, once the safety is off, you could actually leave it off, because it would be, the trigger on the AK is more akin to a long pull, right? So it would be like a double action only pistol, So that's just a little detail that comes in when people show up with the AK, because the AK safety is a lot harder to manipulate, And so we have that little tidbit for you.
All right, so let's see. We got one last question around general questions around caliber. That was a 5.56 or 2.23 of some sort, I'm sure.
Yep.
Any other questions around caliber? Any other comments around caliber, rather?
Obviously, with the rifles, caliber becomes a little bit more pertinent in a discussion of stopping power, if you will, because, the length of the barrel allows for all the powder to get burned, like to get the most out of each individual cartridge caliber and so on, right? So obviously, 5.56 is good enough. We see that most people that use it for work in stopping bad guys, like they use a 77 grain, the Black Hill 77 grain is like the go-to, right? For me, I have defensive ammo, like a hollow point in my 5.56, and it's a light grain, right? Just because, again, for home and so on and so forth, I'm more worried about over penetration than not. But we've seen on barriers, obviously a AK, 765 or a 308 is going to penetrate barrier a lot more effectively than a 5.56 or 223, right? Then we go down to 9mm. Again, 9mm out of a carabine is going to have a different characteristic than out of a pistol, but you know, you can only put so much powder in the cartridge, so you know it's not really going to be like a wall destroyer, right? So again, the higher the caliber, you have more impact on the thread, but you need to shoot slower, so you're going to have less rounds on the thread in the same amount of time, right? So it becomes an individual choice, if you will, right? And again, if you are in an apartment, maybe go 223, 556. If you are in a range, maybe go with a 765 or a 308, just because your context is a little bit different. There's always context dictate tactics, and caliber choice may become part of that choice.
Awesome. Well, we are 15 minutes past the hour. So I'm going to mute everybody, and everybody can give Alessandro a great big round of applause, the 28 people that are left. Everybody say thanks to Alessandro. I'm going to mute y'all again because it's so noisy. Yeah, well, that didn't work. Alessandro, thank you so much. That was awesome. But you got to say it. You got to say it.
Beretta.
There we go.
Hey, Al.
And just to educate everybody, it's chiappa. It's not
Hey, Al.
chiappa.
No, chiappa.
Hey, Al. We actually need to talk about your little idea for your robotic target.
Yeah.
So
Most
you
definitely.
should
All right.
probably give me a call.
I'm going to kill the recording.
All right, do that.
Thanks so much, boys and girls, and thanks for coming. And this was yet another wonderful class. I'm killing the recording now.
Great. Yeah.